What's going on, reefers? Blaine here. In today's video, we're going to be checking out Ian's amazing SPS dominant reef tank. We have a lot of spectacular tank tours in the works, but rather than me talking about the tank here in the studio, let's go ahead and head out and see the system. Reefers, we are here today with Ian. Thank you so much for having me over.
Oh, thank you.
Really excited about diving into another one of our tank tours. You guys have seen the continued series here over on the channel doing tank tours, and today we're going to be checking out this beautiful system. Let's go ahead and start off with, we at Top Shelf installed this for you. What's the size of this tank here, Ian?
This is a 325 on top, so it's 96 by 28 by 28. And then underneath about another 40 gallons or so in the sump. So total about 350, 360.
Very nice. And we were talking just recently about the rock scape. This was made by Kevin. You said you sourced out some Haitian rock for it? Right.
When I was putting the build together, I got lucky. There was an available breakdown that was happening in a bunch of Haitian rock, 100 pounds or so. So I was able to secure that and gave it to Kevin, and he worked his magic and built this beautiful structures.
Yeah, he's done an amazing job on basically every system that I've seen. You know, he makes out of these worldscapes. We've seen it recently with the rust necks. We saw it in the studio, and now we're seeing it here. And I love seeing the Haitian rock. You know, been in the reefing hobby for 20 years at this point, and it's really cool to see it being reincorporated into a tank.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So what was the initial goal for the system? Were you thinking SPS dominant? Obviously you have a lot of sticks in the tank. What was the plan you were going for?
Yeah, when I started the plan, I wanted to focus on SPS. I'd had tanks prior to this, some smaller tanks, and I'd done LPS and fish only when I was starting to get into the hobby. So when I started designing this tank and figuring out what I wanted to do, when I first started in the hobby, I had no interest in acropores at all. I thought it was just not my interest at all. But then as I started over the years and seeing some of the amazing colors and growth and patterns and corals that you could pick up with acropora, I just went all in on this design. So this one's primarily SPS dominant. There's a couple LPS here and there, but main focus is on SPS.
Very nice. I love all the different sticks you've put in here. There's a wide range too. I mean, we have acroporas, we've got stylophoras, we've got all kinds of different species, which is really nice to see. You did make mention that you have some LPS that's sneaking out throughout the tank. I saw you have a couple clams as well in the system. I like where you've placed them onto the scape. What kind of clams do you have in here?
These are tridacna clams. So primarily the blue tealish color ones. Those are the ones that are more commonly available, and I was just starting to experiment with clams and seeing how they did. So I started with trying to do something safe before I went anything different. One of the clams over there, he's kind of growing away from the tank, a little bit away from the front, so you can't really see much of him, but these other two, yeah.
Yeah, they're very nice. I think sometimes people forget that in the wild, that's where they're living, right? Is in the big rockscapes. They're not just shoved into the sand. You know, a lot of times you'll see that's where clams end up in a lot of systems, but I like where you've placed them in the tank. Let's talk a little bit about our fish selection in here. You have some amazing fish. I have to say this one right up here front, the parrotfish we were just talking about, I really enjoy that one. It's a very unique fish you don't see all the time. I guess talk a little bit about the fish you chose, why you chose them, and if you're thinking about adding anything else, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, so yeah, that one you like right there, the parrotfish, he's one of the originals. So I set this tank up, it's been running about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. He was one of the first ones to come in. He's grown quite a bit in size and his colors have really come out. So he is a really beautiful fish. And he likes to show off. He's always in the front of the tank.
For sure.
Yeah. The powder blue, I really like. I look for tangs and anthias and wrasses primarily, just to make sure I had completely reef safe fish. More recently, I've started to get a little bit more daring with the flame angel added in here just to see how he's doing. Now that the corals have kind of filled in a little bit, I'm not as worried about occasional picking here and there, you know, and damaging the corals to any significant amount. But he's been really good so far. He's been in a few weeks and he's been a model citizen, luckily.
That was how Mark's tank was. Mark Hatter, you've seen the video. He has this crazy developed system, but he has a lot of fish in there that most people would say, I wouldn't put that into a reef tank, or that's not reef safe. But he has allowed his corals to grow out so much that even if there is a little bit of picking at polyps, he's not too worried because the grander scale of the colony is not really going to be affected in the long run.
Exactly.
You've added in a bunch of fish too that are utilitarian. I've seen the filefish. You've also added in the diamond gobies. What was the idea in mind when you were thinking about your fish selection? I know you have a lot that are ornamental, but was there an idea for some utilitarian fish as well?
Certainly with the tangs doing the grazing, working off the algae, any growth algae that's popping up on the rocks. I did have an Aptasia outbreak about a year or so ago. That's why the filefish are in there. When I brought them in, they did a really nice job of keeping them under control. And then I also added Kukentheli shrimp, and shrimp, he comes out at night, so he kind of avoids the wrasses and he doesn't get picked on, and he's done a great job with the Aptasia control as well.
A lot of really nice fish. Obviously the corals are great. You've gone with a lot of SPS up top, LPS. What are some of your favorite pieces in the tank?
Oh boy.
I know there's a lot, right?
There's a lot I love. So I have to say one of the ones I like, the Fox Flame, it took me a while for him. He did nothing for like a year and a half, and he was no yellow tips at all on him, and then over the past 8 to 10 months, it's really flourished, and so he's become one of my favorite pieces. I really like the blue one, the Heart of the Ocean Acropora. It's like a deep blue up on the left side of the tank there. He's been just beautiful, slow grower, but I really love the colors on that guy.
I have to say my favorite probably in the tank is that Crayola Meltdown. Those chalices you have grown crazily nice, and that one has a very unique slicing of the coloring and grafting onto itself. That's a beautiful piece.
Yeah, he took to that spot right away. I got very lucky.
Yeah, for sure. Chalices can be finicky in a way, and it's nice to see that they're doing really well in the tank. Let's talk a little bit about the equipment we're running. What kind of lights do we have up top?
It's a mix. It's got Radion XR15s, Gen 4s, and then also T5 lighting.
You told us what kind of lights you're running up top. What's the schedule for the light system? How long are they running during the day, and where are they peaking out on all that?
So the LEDs kick on around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They run till about 11 at night, and then the T5s kick in about a half an hour later on each side.
Are you enjoying the combination of LEDs and the T5s?
I am. I found the T5s to enhance the colors a bit more. I found the combination to be really ideal. I had just LEDs prior to this, and then this was my first kind of experiment in running with T5s, and I really do enjoy it. It's helped a lot.
T5s for sure bring out some amazing colors in the fish especially, and I think in the Acropora up top they're going to really enjoy getting blasted from those T5s and the LEDs. And then for wave makers, I see MPs. Do we have anything else? Is it mainly just the MP series?
Just the 3 MP40s.
Okay, 3 MP40s. And then the sump space down below, how big of a sump is it?
I can't remember exactly. I want to say it's kind of broken into 2 pieces.
Okay.
There's a refugium type sump area. That's probably about 30 gallons. It's kind of the size of a biocube. And then the other side, I don't think I've measured it actually to know, but it has the standard filter socks going into a protein skimmer and then return pumps.
Okay, so you have the protein skimmer. Is there any other big mechanical filtration down below that you're utilizing?
The filter socks, and the protein skimmer for physical, and then recently put in an ozone system on there for helping with the water clarity. I did use carbon for a little while. I preferred the ozone. I just feel like it was a little less maintenance for the volume of the size that I needed for canisters. The ozone was just a little bit more easy with the equipment to put in and set it up. So I've been running that for about 3 months or so.
How long are you running the ozone for per day?
I run about an hour at night, just an hour and a half at night. Yeah, I saw some videos of some folks I do have an ORP probe, and I was nervous about the ORP levels getting high, of over 450 or so. So I just run it a couple hours at night, and I saw a noticeable difference just doing that alone. And so I don't have to worry about the ORP levels when I do it that way.
Are you using that second space down below that 30-gallon or so section? It's kind of like a little frag area, huh? I saw the 2 clownfish are down there, and then you have a bunch of zoas and other things. Are you keeping specific things down there that you're not able to keep up top? Or is it something that you've just decided become kind of a grow out?
So when I initially designed the system, it was going to be like Cheeto and refugium, keep the nitrates down. But I've had a lot of success with keeping the nitrates down just naturally. So I converted it to kind of a little LPS grow out area. So I've rocks there with a lot of zoas on it. There's some acans down there, some bowers. down there as well. And then if there's any other type of corals that aren't doing well in the display, maybe current's too strong, I end up kind of putting them down there.
Shifting them down below.
And the clownfish I kept down there just for movement.
Right.
And I bred them in prior tanks.
Okay.
And so I have a pair down there. I'm kind of hoping maybe they'll end up doing the same thing for me and breeding again.
Get some breeding activity from them. Very cool, very cool. When it comes to the remaining of the equipment running down below, 24/7, other than the ozone, everything else is running 24/7, the skimmer and things like that?
Yes, that's correct. Yep,
Okay.
the skimmer runs full time, and it's because it's hooked up with the ozone too. The production has changed a little bit with the ozone running, but with my nitrates and phosphates tending to be on the low side, I haven't had an issue with just letting it be like that. So.
When it comes to the numbers, right? So what are the numbers you're shooting for? Do you have a specific set you're looking to get out of your major elements in the tank? And what are you doing to try and achieve those?
So for the standard numbers like elk, I keep around 8 to 8.5. And for calcium, the standard 420, and magnesium around ideally 1400, but I tend to be a little bit under that. I tend to be in the 1300 range. For nitrates, I try to keep them up around 15 to 20. However, lately it's been around 10. And then for phosphates, I target around 0.08 to 0.12.
I'm sure you're getting a lot of those nitrates getting soaked up with all the coral growth. You know,
Yes.
the people forget that corals need all of those elements as well, and they start absorbing all that extra nutrients. So have you thought of maybe adding some more fish if you're trying to combat that, or are you just going to try to maybe dose it yourself, or maybe expand your amount of water changes, things like that?
Yeah, I'll probably end up adding additional fish. I like the natural method of just having a more balanced ecosystem, as natural as I can make it. With the dosing, I did start initially with the 2-part dosing, and then I ended up switching to a calcium reactor. I found it, once it was set up and running, I found it a lot less intervention that I had to do, no refills, no cleaning of tubes and things. So I found it a lot easier to switch to a calcium reactor for my tank.
I saw down below you have the Reef Moonshiners elements. You've just recently swapped over to that. How are you liking it, and how has that worked out for the tank?
So last year, around middle of last year, I switched over to the Moonshiners. The corals were doing well. I had some colors, decent, average growth. And I just wanted to try something new. I read a lot about the Moonshiners on Reef to Reef and other forums. So I gave it a shot. I've been running it for about 6 months, so it's not like a long-term results, but I did see, I don't know if the colors I saw significant improvement on as much. I did see some improvement, but I definitely saw growth. I saw a lot more growth with switching over within the first 3 to 4 months. And actually kind of right around the time the fox flame started showing up and coloring up a lot for me too.
Okay, so obviously it seems like it's heading in the right direction. Those two things you mentioned, I think, are the two biggest things we're all trying to achieve in our reef tanks, right? Great growth and then great color. So being able to see some really good growth is a really exciting thing. It's interesting to hear the Reef Moonshiners method. I personally have not ran it myself, but it's always great to see people's success. And I've seen, like you said, a lot on the forums and all the different places that people are enjoying the Reef Moonshiners method. Okay. Are you doing any coral feedings? Are you doing anything for the corals other than just the basic elements that are entering the tank, or just the fish poop that's happening in the system?
Pretty much, yeah, just the fish poop, Phyto that I add in. Other than that, no, I don't do any specific coral feeding.
Yeah, I think the live feeds that we produce over at Shelf Aquatics are amazing. We see the great results in our farm facilities. We're using them all the time. So it's really cool to come into a tank here in someone's home and hear about the Shelf Aquatics phytoplankton getting used in these tanks. I know Taras will be excited to hear that, so really cool to see that.
Good. Yeah, I've been very happy with them.
What are you doing for cleanup crew in here? The tank is beautiful. I'm sure you got in here beforehand and got it a little clean, but it's very clean. What are you doing for cleanup crew in the system? Are you doing anything in particular?
So tiger conchs are in here. They do a little bit of the sand stirring. I have a number of cucumbers. There's like black cucumbers, there's yellow, there's 3 or 4 tiger tail cucumbers in it here. So they've helped quite a bit. I still wasn't completely happy with all the sand. I still found patches in the area where they just wouldn't go to. I did get a couple of diamond gobies, and my water used to be crystal clear before I put those in. But then when they came in, they've done an excellent job with, the sand is always white. I don't know how they get to everything, but they've made a big difference in keeping the sand stirred up. But is a little bit of a trade-off. I get a little bit particulate in the water column, and it's okay. It's worth the trade-off for me. But yeah, that's been most of my regimen with the sand. I don't do a lot other than maybe once every 6 to 10 months I'll stir the sand up a bit, just to kind of mix it and get anything, detritus and anything else out into the water column to go into the filter system. But other than that, I don't touch much of the sand.
Okay, and staying with that same concept, maintenance, what are we doing for maintenance? We talked about it earlier. You showed me the water changing system. So you're doing an automatic water change. What else are you doing for maintenance for this tank?
Other than glass cleaning, I do some occasional tests of the phosphate nitrates. I do with the Moonshiners, I do about every 2 to 3 months, I'll send in an ICP. I use the ICP MS test and send that in for results and then make adjustments from there. But other than that, it's pretty minimal maintenance. I tried to do that from when I designed it in the beginning, because I know my life has a lot of ups and downs like a lot of people.
Right.
So I tried to build a tank here where I could have as least minimal impact or involvement as possible with it.
Yeah, being able to show people that it's able and you're capable of doing this, without being hands in all the time, doing all kinds of maintenance. This is a great example of a tank that's got some amazing growth, and you're able to do it, without having to be involved every single day in the tank. I'm sure you come by and you take a look at it every single day, but you don't have to get in there and get your hands wet every single day, which is really nice.
Right. Yeah, other than the feedings.
You took the words right out of my mouth. So what are you doing for feeding? How are you feeding the tank? Are you feeding anything specifically? Are you doing a wide range of foods? What are you feeding the tank?
So I'll make every 3 or 4 weeks, I make a trip down the top shelf and I'll buy just a bunch of the frozen food packets, usually Hikari, Ocean Nutrition, and then I use recently the Phyto that you guys developed. I've been using that as well every other day or so, putting that in. So it's mostly just a frozen food mix. And then after that, I've seen those few of the other videos you've had where people are doing the pellets and they're doing an automatic doser. So that's really intrigued me. So I might end up switching to that too and doing that in the morning. I noticed that seems to work well with some of the other videos you've posted up.
Yeah, I have an AFS system at home. I've got a group of Bimacanthus, and so I'm using an AFS on my Neptune to give a little bit of pellet food in the morning because I'm not home, I'm at work, and those fish usually tend to like several feedings throughout the day. So I've decided to kind of add that into my own system. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention about the tank, when it comes to how you're making it run, how you're getting this amazing growth? Any other kind of big tips that you have for people watching at home?
I think just watching it every day, I've noticed that when you're paying attention to the tank, you look for things, you see certain corals tend to give you indicators to let you know that, hey, there's something might be off or you're not happy with. I tend to, as you get to know your tank and the corals well enough, you kind of get a sense when things might be starting to slide, nitrates are getting too low or phosphates are getting too high. So that's helped me a lot, just having those early indicators so I can run a test and catch something before it becomes a significant problem.
Down below, I've heard a couple noises recently. So is this the automatic
auto
water?
top off? Yeah.
Okay, that's the auto top off.
Yeah, I have a 20-gallon auto top off.
How much? Do you know how much you're ending up topping off throughout the course of the day? How quickly do you go through that 20 gallons?
So when I lived in Maryland, top offs was very minimal. But here in Florida, it runs through 20 gallons. I'd say every 8 to 10 days in the summertime, especially. So I found myself topping off a lot, like refilling the top off quite a bit. During the summer. So I ended up automating that a little bit more and having that automatically feed into the auto top off now, so I don't have to carry any water buckets. But yeah, it goes through, it evaporates quite a bit in the summer. Especially with the canopy.
Right, with the canopy, I'm sure it adds that little bit more.
It does.
When it comes to your fish, we talked maybe potentially wanting to add something else. Anything in particular in mind that you have that you really want to get into this system?
Well, my family they love angelfish.
Okay.
So I think an emperor angel is something you've always loved. I'm really nervous about that just yet. Maybe letting the colonies grow a little bit more. But I've heard mixed reviews on their success for emperor angels. Other than that, maybe a few extra wrasses. Might put a nasotang in here so they can just add another tank into the mix, and it should get along with the others that I have in there currently.
Every fish is going to have its own personality, right? So depending on what emperor ranger you get, they're not all going to act exactly the same. I've heard a lot of really good success stories. Mark was one of them, by getting them really young, getting them small, and trying to really force them to go for the, you know, foods that we provide to our tanks at home. I think now with all the captive breeding, you know, aquaculture that's happening, it's made it much easier for us at home to be able to add in those emperor angels and have a little bit more peace of mind, you know, that they may not go after everything, but I think that's a risk we're always willing to take, right, when we want to add in a new special fish.
Right. And in terms of other fish, maybe a crosshatch trigger if Hawaii ever opens up again.
Yeah.
Or finding somebody with a tank breakdown that has one available, that would be ideal, but the prices there are currently insane.
For sure. Like most things coming out of Hawaii, right? Like the whitetail coal tangs, true yellow tangs. I mean, things that we're not really seeing anymore right now. Who knows when Hawaii's going to get back rolling. So like you said, probably a tank breakdown or something of that sort.
Exactly.
So I've asked pretty much everyone when I've come to their house for the tank tours, you know, Jake Adams asked every single time when he would do a tank tour or visit with anyone, he would ask what their biggest piece of advice for a newcomer, beginner, or just anyone that's in the hobby. What's your greatest piece of advice when you have a tank like this, you know? And you've said it, and pretty much everyone has said it when I've come and visit their tanks. It's like the grass is greener kind of thing. You know, they see the tank every day, and I think sometimes you get jaded to what you see every day and forget how truly beautiful and amazing these systems are. So you've done an outstanding job with this tank. It looks amazing. And what would be a piece of advice you'd give to people?
I'd say when I started the plan, I knew this was going to be a longer term commitment. So I would say that, you know, this hobby is a long-term commitment for a lot of people. So having the patience, you hear a lot about the patience of going through it, but being able to roll with the punches. There's always going to be things that are going to go wrong. You introduce things you didn't want to introduce, or pests or other things like that. So having the patience and fortitude to know that you can actually work your way through those problems, I think is the biggest piece of advice I have, right? Don't give up right away.
Right. Having the resilience in this hobby is really tough. It's a quick turnover when it comes to people. Usually that first year span is the hardest year to get through. People will kind of struggle throughout that first year. They go through all the problems. You know, no matter how many tanks you set up, I feel like at the beginning it's really tough. I've got a new tank at home. I'm going through every issue known to man, but it's just being resilient, staying on top of it, and just trying to attack it in every different way, shape, and form. Thank you so much for having us over here. The tank is beautiful. You've done a great job. Can't wait to come back here in the future and do an update and see when it's even more grown in. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I wanna say thank you so much to you guys for checking out this video, hanging out with me and Ian, seeing the tank. He's got some amazing SPS, beautiful fish, a very unique selection of fish. And I wanna say thank you to you guys for checking out this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on any future uploads.